Hi everyone, my name's Dan Draper and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe and turn on all notifications to keep up to date with the content that I'm going to be putting out, including my podcast. Let's get into the videos. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Dan Draper podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Honestly, I am so excited about season 2. You have no idea. And what better way to kick it off than someone who's been an amazing advocate for the podcast since I first started it, and someone who's now actually become a good friend. So Dr. Joe Cleasby, aka Psychology Joe, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Hey man, yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I'm a clinical psychologist working in the health service, and I'm really excited to have a chat with you today, all things mental health. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast, buddy.
No problem at all, mate. Thank you so much. How are things? How's the things going?
Yeah, man, I think if I said they were going perfect, I'd be lying. We're in lockdown 3 when we're recording this, so we're used to this, but it doesn't get any easier. It's really, really tough trying to motivate myself every day, trying to keep a good routine, trying to do all the things I know keep me healthy, but it's still not easy. So it's tough, but I'm doing my best, and I'm finding chatting to people, things like this, having that next thing in the diary really helpful to kind of get me through. But what about you? How are you finding it, man?
Yeah, no, I mean, like yourself, like so many other people, very so. I've got, I'm trying to find my feet in certain different areas of work that I never sort of branched out to beforehand, and yeah, it's going well for the most part at the minute. But yeah, fingers crossed, we'll get there and we'll be at some sort of normality again soon.
Let's bring some positivity to some people's day, hopefully.
Exactly, man. Exactly. How was things like Christmas and stuff? Obviously, it must have been a bit different to what was there previously. But yeah, how was Christmas and New Year for you?
Well, Christmas was like the weirdest Christmas. I think for everybody, this kind of expectation that we were going to have this beautiful holiday from COVID, where we'd see everybody that we needed to see and be with everyone. And it was just a classic case of like expectation versus reality, wasn't it? Of just having to adjust everything to that one day. And I think it was tough because I'm a real family person and I get a lot of my well-being from being around people. I think I'm a bit of an extrovert, and at times that makes COVID really difficult. So whilst it was great to have the time off, I'm also a bit of an active relaxer. I like to be doing things in my annual leave and time off. So it was tough to just be sitting around feeling as if I wasn't doing anything. But you got to understand it's just part and parcel of where we're at, and be compassionate with yourself, I guess, and just be patient with the process of what we're all going through.
Yeah, exactly. I found that so much that this lockdown in particular, because for me, I was rushing at 1,000 miles an hour. I wanted to get everything sorted as soon as I could, and then I was just like, just take a breath. You're running yourself out into the ground now. There's a lot of prep, not only for the side projects that I'm doing, but for the podcast and things like that. So for me, I was just like, yeah, I need to relax a little bit. But yeah, mate, honestly, thank you so much for coming on again. I really, really do appreciate it. So let's take it right back to the beginning then, mate. Tell us where it all kind of began for you, and where it is that maybe your mental health struggles may have started.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I love to be open about my own experiences as well. I think one thing that mental health professionals and psychologists, and they can be a bit closed off, and we're people too. So yeah, I'm really happy to explore this question. For me, I think my own experience and understanding of mental health came particularly through my brother. My youngest brother has got autism and was diagnosed with autism, I think when I was like 10 years old or 9 years old. And at that age, you're kind of like, I have no idea what this is. And I think in the last like 15, 20 years, understanding of autism and neurodiversity has come a long way. But at that age, I was just like, oh, that's a cool thing. Sounds interesting. What's this going to be like for my brother, my younger brother? But trying to see the world from his perspective and trying to accompany and help somebody in lots of different social situations that you take for granted that they're struggling with, I think started to give me this perception that actually, it's not just me in this world. There's lots of other people and they're also going through lots of different struggles. And I think it started to develop empathy for me in other people. I really wanted to learn and understand what they were going through. But conversely, on the other side of that, I was always really anxious. Like I was a very anxious teen, worried about what people would think about me with a brother that's different, a family that's different. What do people think about me? What am I going to do in my life? I had so many young questions when I was young that I was anxious about. And it took me a real long time to start to calm down. I was such a jittery, anxious, nervous person. So I think I've always understood what it's like to have anxiety, really. I wouldn't say I've got anxiety all the time, but I understand what it's like to experience it and kind of go through the nerves of every day. It's almost like you're battling against the challenges of the world, and then you're battling against yourself at times with anxiety and struggles like that. But yeah, that's one of the things that really kind of got me interested in mental health and understanding mental health.
Yeah, and I think that's such a key thing because, understanding it, and I mean, I'm still learning so much about mental health. I've done a lot of research on it now, which, is upskilling myself with that, which is great. But there's so much to learn with it. And I think from your example there, like you were saying there about your brother and your family and things like that, which we'll touch on in a moment. But I think that the fact that you took your own initiative and was like, actually, I'm gonna learn about this. I'm not just gonna be someone who's just gonna deal with it or just put it to one side and have, like I said in season one, that sort of British stiff upper lip where it's very much, oh yeah, well, it'll be fine. We'll just see what happens with it. And I think that's really admirable, mate. So yeah, congrats to you. But like you were saying there about your family and your brother in particular, when you first found out about autism and you wanted to learn about it, what would you say would have been sort of the key trigger for you saying, do you know what, actually, this is something maybe I can do to support or to understand a bit more? What was that kind of eureka moment, if you like?
Yeah, I think there was a few different ones, to be honest. I think at first, I think for a lot of people, this is the thing with autism, is that you think it's just one thing. Like autistic people are these group of people and they all do this or they all like this. They all have a particular skill or they all have something they're really interested in. And I was like, how is that different to other people? Like what is it that's different about this situation, this kind of challenge that they have? And it took me time to understand that, each person with autism is just so unique and that they're not experiencing the social world in the same way that everybody else does. And I think developing that empathy, that ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes was really important for me in understanding his journey. When I was with my family and with my friends and really enjoying myself, I was thinking, what would he be thinking? How is he feeling in this situation? And I think that ability to be able to put yourself, like I said, in that other person's perspective from a young age really kind of made me mature and grow up quicker. I wasn't just enjoying my own life. I was thinking, how can I help him? How can I help him as well?
Yeah, no, that's amazing, man. And the fact that at the age that you were at the time, obviously you're a younger man than what you are now. Like to have that level of just understanding and being able to show not only the emotional intelligence but also the empathy that comes with it as well is amazing. So what would you have said, when you were going through that period and through that sort of transition of where you were with everything? What would you have said have been one of your sort of toughest times?
That's a good question, man. I think one of the toughest times I experienced through that is learning to accept him for who he is and that other people could really appreciate him for who he is as well. Not that he had to be like somebody else, he could be like himself and still be loved and appreciated. And that really taught me that, in this world, there's such diversity, there's so many different people, and they all have something to bring to the table. It won't necessarily look like one thing. And I think when you're a teenager and you're growing up and you're trying to find out what you want to be in the world, you want to be successful, you want to pursue this, you want to be good at sports, you want to be good at everything, and somebody doesn't necessarily fit that mold in the same way you wanted them to, your younger brother, I think I just had to learn to accept and love him for who he was. And I think that really taught me how to relate to people. Not everybody wants the same things in life and has to do it in the same way. And they can still be successful and achieve things in a meaningful way in their own way. And I think that took me a lot of time to accept that for him, but also for myself. I think as a teenager going through school and wanting to achieve, and when I didn't always hit the high levels. Yeah, so I came from a really academic background and my family being really academic. And I think learning how to accept my brother, learning how to accept myself, that I wouldn't always reach the same heights in the same way, but that I had my own path and that could still be successful. I think I found that really hard in my teens. And like socially as well, I had a bit of a nightmare in my teens. I was so anxious. Like I would never go up to people and initiate conversations. So I think there's been so many different periods in my life where anxiety and worries have kind of got me down, but I've always managed to find a way through it. And I think that's one of the things with mental health difficulties. They're always, hopefully for most people anyway, there's another side to it, and that we can get through it. And I think if you keep pursuing and keep pushing hard enough, and like you said, Dan, as well, with that understanding, you know, when you start to understand more about yourself, you can get through these things.
So what would you say for you then, mate, was the bit that, you know, how you turned it all around, how you then went, actually, you know, this is what's happening at the moment, and how can I turn my experiences into something that can then be positive for other people?
Few moments, I don't think it was one moment per se, but I found that for myself, I was always a person that got stuck in my head a little bit. You know, these thoughts that come up of, you can't do this, or somebody might think this about you. I always found that when I got into my head, quite cognitive, loads of these thoughts, pushing myself behaviorally, so pushing myself out of my comfort zone and doing something, kind of would disprove that thought. So I know it sounds kind of scientific and strange, but pushing yourself and changing your behavior helps to readdress the balance of your thoughts. And I've always found that really helpful. When I would have a negative thought, I'd try and do something positive that would build my self-esteem, and then that would change that thought about myself. So I used to be really anxious, I said, and I put myself in situations where that anxiety would either thrive or die. I'd have to push it to the extreme, you know. I'd help out in youth groups. I'd go into social groups and push myself. I'd ask my parents to push me, and they'd drag me along to things and do stuff. And I found that I was always kind of battling against it, but that was the best way to fight it, was by just kind of not letting that passivity and lethargy breed, just pushing it back by being behaviorally active. And I think that's something that's really important at the moment as well. You know, when we've got these negative thoughts, we're stuck, we're locked in, we're feeling trapped. You've got to do something to try and break that cycle, physically, emotionally, get out, do something, speak to somebody, go on a run, anything. It breaks the cycle and changes it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say then that that was one of the things that made you want to become a psychologist and go down that route?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I studied psychology at A level, and I think, like a lot of other people, found it just so many like dates and names and really kind of academic. I didn't find like I was learning anything about people, which is why I went into it. But as I studied it more and more, it felt more natural, and I felt like I had this natural affinity to getting along with people, to making conversation, to understanding people, their backgrounds and their stories. And that's why I love podcasts and stories and stuff like this, because you get to know people's stories. You know, the power of a narrative is so special. So I think that's one of the huge things that drew me to psychology.
Yeah, and obviously you went through uni and things like that, and we spoke off air beforehand, and you were saying that when you were going through university that you found it, you know, you were struggling to cope with your anxiety because all of the anxieties came back and a bit more. So do you think that that's something, maybe now when you look back at it and you know how you were feeling at the time, now obviously you've come over a lot of the anxieties and we still have our general day-to-day ones, but can you tell us a bit about how you felt in your anxiety at that time compared to how you feel about how you deal with anxiety now?
Yeah, I think one of the huge things that popped up for me when I was training and studying at university was like, there was all of these people that were really interested in doing clinical psychology, but there was only these amount of places. Like, there was a handful of places, and I always felt like I was being scrutinized and watched by the academics at the university and everything that was happening. So I used to get so anxious before I'd speak in lectures and in class. I'd feel my heart literally going up my throat, and it felt like it was vibrating in my thorax. Yeah. And I was like, and I couldn't speak. I'd literally start speaking and choke up in the middle of the session. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I've always been a bit anxious, but I'm really struggling to even get my words out. Like, I'm really doubting myself. Why am I doubting myself so much? Where's all this doubt coming from? So one thing I realized, actually, I know it sounds really funny, but I was drinking far too much coffee before these. And it
Right.
was getting all my anxiety going. It was getting my heart rate pumping. And then compounded with my anxiety, I was really struggling to express myself. So I just started to challenge those thoughts a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, why have I got so much self-doubt? There's no reason to doubt myself. I'm capable. Let's calm this anxiety down. Let's relax and express yourself. And I started to be able to express myself better and better each time. And I think it comes with practice. The confidence comes back. And over time, I obviously got onto the course, and it reaffirmed that I was capable. So again, pushing myself through those anxieties rather than yielding to them and giving up really helped me to build my confidence.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that's the same with when I was going through school. I was a very confident person in terms of outgoing and, being involved in all the sports and things like that. But inside, I was actually quiet in a way. As soon as I got home, I was quite an introvert. And, for me, I felt like I was putting on, at times, not all the time, but at times I felt like I was putting on this kind of act and I needed to, put a mask on and say, yeah, I'm Dan Draper. I'm super confident. I'm XYZ, when actually, I was just somebody that I think that was struggling with their own anxieties. But again, when I was in school, I never really understood anxiety. I think now when we're doing things like this and talking about mental health and anxiety and things like that we're paving the way now for people who are in school, the kids now, and the younger adults that are coming through. We're paving the way for how the conversation should be started in school. And it was a massive thing for me to try and get my anxiety, under control. So, what would you say then, mate? Would be some sort of easy techniques for people to relieve their anxiety?
Mm. Yeah, I think one thing that can be quite helpful that I used was that often when I was in like these lectures, I was in these scenarios and I was nervous about public speaking. If that's one thing that you're struggling about, write just a few bullet points down for yourself. Make things easier. Nobody's going to think you're stupid for writing things down if you need to express yourself. Yeah, you're just helping yourself with a few prompts. And another thing is that anxiety is really a physiological response. It's a threat response to try and protect you. So you're nervous about speaking in front of somebody. Your body's saying, hey, shut up, don't bother speaking because you're going to look stupid. So it's not trying to harm you, it's trying to protect you. Your anxiety is not trying to undermine you, it's trying to help you in some way. So don't get your body on the wrong side of you, and don't worry about feeling anxiety. It's totally normal. In fact, it's hardwired, it's not going anywhere. So let's learn to work with it rather than fight against it. One thing that I did as well is that I would find any sort of square object in the room that I could see, like a poster on a wall, and I'd just follow it around and breathe in along the vertical, breathe out along the horizontal, breathe in, and just do that nice breathing pattern 4 times over and over until I started to feel calmer again. And it was just simple tricks like that I would read about online. And then I'd start talking to myself, it's going to be okay, just relax, And before long, I could get any sort of racing heartbeat under control. And that made me feel really confident in myself as well, that I can overcome this. It's not something that I have to be a victim of.
Yeah, and do you know what? I've never thought of, let alone heard about that sort of breathing technique, because I've heard of certain different breathing techniques that have gone through. Jamie Clements is a huge ambassador for breathwork and things that he's doing with that. So, and I've listened to a few of the bits of content that he's done with that. But yeah, I've never really looked into it properly. So I've got the picture in the background here. I'll be using that. I'll sit in the chair opposite and yeah, just get on with that, because I think that breath work now is such an important thing, especially when you're trying to relax in the evening, or you're trying to get rid of the pressures of the day. Just to have that those last few minutes of the day, just to go, just have that time.
I think that's a nice exercise as well to do if people are finding it difficult, like I personally do, Dan, to break up your work day from your home life, especially when I'm in my study now. I also plug up my PlayStation over there.
Yeah.
I do all sorts in this room. It's not just my work room. It's like life that happens here as well. Whereas before we had that clear divide. So I think one thing that's nice to do is just set yourself a little exercise at 5 o'clock at the end of the day if you're working from home or whatever it is, so that you can have that kind of clear separation, do a few breathing exercises, and then you can switch modes. You can go from work mode to home mode. And I think that's really a key adaptive strategy to try and use at this time when everything's kind of mushed under one roof, isn't it?
So yeah, mate, I think that's massively sound advice, and thank for you. But just kind of touching on that a bit more. I mean, what advice would you give to someone who's struggling at the moment, or may have had sort of similar experiences to yourself?
Yeah, I think at the moment the big thing that I've been trying to work on is self-compassion. That actually, we're in the midst of a global pandemic. The challenges that everybody's facing now are probably the biggest they've faced, and maybe the biggest they will face in terms of a global challenge. So don't beat yourself up. Yeah, you don't need another person to be battling against in spite of everything that's going on around us. If you feel like you're having negative criticisms of yourself, I should be doing this, you see other people on social media, they're doing this, they're doing that, why can't I do something? How come I'm not using my time well? I've not got my job, I've lost this. Just take it slowly. We're in the middle of a global health crisis. Yeah, just take it slowly. You're going to be okay, and reach out for support. There's going to be 100 people at least. You don't even know how many people around you want to speak to you, really want to speak to you. So open up, talk to them, relax, let them into your world. Recently, I was really struggling, and I spoke to a friend, and I actually started crying. I couldn't believe that I was breaking down. And the amount of love that those people showed me around me that I talked to really showed me that, there's so much love in these friendships that we have. We need to show that we're vulnerable sometimes. And I think that's really tough as guys to show that, especially that we can actually be emotional. What we're actually struggling here. It's really hard. But I think when you show that you're vulnerable, other friends will come running miles towards you. I genuinely believe that humans want to care for each other. So I think definitely don't be harsh on yourself. Open up, show some vulnerability, show emotion to people, and those connections will really come through those strong friendships and relationships you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so key about the staying connected piece, because for me, as you know, I've been running a challenge throughout lockdown, which is the Chinwag challenge, and it literally is just to get people talking. Like, it doesn't need to be about anything really. It could be about how you make a cup of tea, which apparently I've got to do on Instagram, um, and things like that. So it's just ways of making lockdown a bit easier, because we will see the statistics more next year or the end of this year about how lockdown 1 and lockdown 2 affected people's mental health, the suicide rates, loneliness, and things like that. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to just take on this challenge and create it, and just say, look, it's okay to talk. Like, and if it's not okay to talk at the moment, and you feel like your mental health it's a lot of pressure to try and chat to people, then there's other services out there that, like Shout and things like that, where you can text through. And the Samaritans have got a text service as well that you can just talk about it. So the key thing is just that communication piece.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a good thing that you've set up. And, not everybody's going to be able to reach out and talk to people in the same way. But I think to recognize that if it's a little bit uncomfortable, sometimes that's actually a good thing for us. It's not always great to be in our comfort zone, pushing ourselves, talking like this, doing the Chinwag challenge, whatever it is, ringing up a mate, going on a run, something simple that pushes you out of your comfort zone. You're going to feel a whole host of benefits afterwards. And yeah, I think that we are seeing, in the community mental health team I work in, we're seeing huge amounts of demand for services. So they're not going to be provided completely by health services. Health services are brilliant, but they haven't got all the answers. Community and friendship is just as strong, and can provide just as an amazing support as well as the health service. So we all have to do our bit. And I know so many people are doing amazing things during this time. So keep up the good work, Dan.
Oh, thank you so much, mate. I really do appreciate that. And I think that's such a key thing that you've just said there about the community piece, because, the NHS at the moment is stretched so thin, and my heart goes out to anybody who works in the NHS, and they're doing such an incredible job. So it feels like that if you can take it on yourself and you're able to talk, and that some of the services there that may be under a bit of pressure, and you always have someone who go, oh yeah, well, they didn't get back to me because of XYZ and blah blah blah. Like you said earlier, we're in the middle of a global sort of pandemic. There's so many things that are going on at the minute that are gonna put us all in jeopardy. So just reach out to the people that are closest to you. Again, this is why I've reached out to you, mate. Like, not only are you shining example of how mental health is good and easy to talk about, but men's mental health especially is something that we really need to keep tackling. So thank you so much, mate.
No worries, absolute pleasure. I think one thing on that's really important is about, sometimes we can feel as though, other people won't open up, and why won't they open up? These people won't open up. And then we think, wait a minute, have I ever actually opened up to them? It's kind of starting with ourselves first, and sometimes modeling to people that you can be vulnerable, that you can say something was tough. opens the door for them to be able to do it back. So I think in relationships, this didactic, this two-way flow is really important. And if you feel as though other people aren't opening up to you and they're not talking to you, you're losing connection, go halfway down that street and I'm sure they'll come back the other way.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's absolutely sound advice. Joe, thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really do appreciate it. Where is it that we can find you? Where's your socials? Where's your website? Because I understand that that's coming soon. Where can we find you?
You've got an exclusive for your podcast. Yeah, my website's launching soon, which is psychologyjoe.com. That'll be out in the next few days. So hopefully when this podcast's out, that's there. And on Instagram's my main platform, Psychology Joe on Instagram. I've got free resources there. I've got relaxing meditations. I've got clips and insights from psychological therapy. If you've ever thought, could therapy benefit me? I've put some little insights from stuff that I do with people every day. So go and enjoy those benefits, share them with your friends. And if you find something helpful, drop me a message. I'm happy to have a chat with anybody.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you so much. And again, I just want to say a massive thank you for being such a huge advocate for the podcast and everything that I was doing in the first series. And I know that we've been saying about getting you on for a while, so I couldn't think of, honestly, a better way to kick off season 2 than to have you on. So thank you so much, mate. And please stay safe with everything that you're doing. And yeah, hopefully at some point soon, once COVID dies down a bit, we'll all be able to meet up and we can have a chat face to face.
Definitely, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Take care of yourself.
Perfect. Thank you so much, mate. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.